Let's talk about something really interesting in biology called autophagy. It's a natural process that's happening in your body all the time at a low level, but depending on certain conditions, it can become much more active. In simple terms, autophagy is your body's internal cleanup and recycling system. You can think of it like this. Inside your cells, there's a constant balance between building things up and breaking things down. Autophagy is the breaking down side, but in a smart way. It doesn't just destroy randomly. It identifies damaged or unnecessary components and turns them into usable material again. It's almost like having a highly organized recycling center inside every cell, where old or broken parts are collected, processed, and reused. When I say junk, I'm referring to things like damaged proteins that no longer function properly. These faulty proteins can build up over time and contribute to inflammation in the body. Autophagy helps clear these out before they start causing more trouble. But it's not just proteins. Inside each cell, there are also structures called organelles, which are basically the working machines of the cell. For example, mitochondria are responsible for producing energy, and there are other structures involved in making proteins and handling different cellular tasks. If any of these components get damaged or stop working properly, autophagy steps in to remove or repair them so the cell can keep functioning efficiently. Another important role of autophagy is dealing with harmful invaders. It can help clear out pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, mold, and even viruses. These invaders can trigger inflammation and stress in the body, so removing them helps restore balance. It also deals with viral antigens, which are parts of viruses that alert your immune system and can contribute to inflammatory responses. By clearing these signals and damaged materials, autophagy helps reduce unnecessary immune activation. Because of all this cleanup activity, autophagy is often described as a kind of anti-aging mechanism. It doesn't just remove waste, it also helps regenerate the system. The materials that are recycled can be reused to build new proteins, repair cells, and even provide energy when the body needs it. So in a way, it supports both cleaning and rebuilding at the same time. Now, how do you actually get into a stronger state of autophagy? The truth is, you're probably always experiencing a basic level of it. The real question is how to increase it to a more noticeable or beneficial level. One of the key factors is energy availability in the body. Autophagy tends to become more active when the body is in a low energy state, meaning it has to rely more on internal resources rather than incoming fuel. If you keep providing the body with plenty of energy, especially in the form of calories, the need for recycling decreases. Two major things that quickly reduce or shut down autophagy are sugar and protein intake. Sugar is a fast energy source, and protein provides building blocks the body can directly use. When these are available in sufficient amounts, the body doesn't feel the need to break down its own damaged components for resources. In other words, if fresh fuel and materials are coming in regularly, internal recycling slows down. So, in general, when calorie intake is high, autophagy is much less active because the body prioritizes using what's already coming in rather than breaking down internal waste for survival. Now here's where things get more complex and actually quite important. Autophagy has a dual nature when it comes to disease, especially cancer. On one hand, autophagy is highly protective. By continuously clearing out damaged mitochondria, misfolded proteins, and other cellular issues, it helps reduce the risk of abnormal cell behavior. In this sense, it acts like a defense system that helps prevent disease development, including cancer. Keeping cells clean and functional lowers the chances of things going wrong at a deeper level. However, there's a paradox. If cancer has already developed, autophagy can sometimes support its progression instead of stopping it. That's because cancer cells can take advantage of this recycling system. When autophagy breaks down cellular components, it can unintentionally provide raw materials and energy that cancer cells may use to survive and grow. So while autophagy is generally protective in healthy conditions, in an established cancer environment, it can potentially be used by the tumor to sustain itself. This is why researchers are very interested in understanding how to control or regulate autophagy depending on the situation. In fact, there are medical approaches being studied that involve blocking autophagy in certain cancer cases. The idea is that if you stop cancer cells from accessing this recycling system, you may limit their ability to grow and survive. Some drugs that target autophagy pathways have been explored in this context, including medications like hydroxychloroquine, which has been studied for its ability to interfere with this process. So overall, autophagy is not simply good or bad. It's a powerful biological system that helps maintain balance in the body. In healthy conditions, it supports cleaning, repair, and renewal. But in certain disease states, especially cancer, its role can become more complicated depending on how and where it is active. There are, of course, potential side effects with any pharmaceutical approach, which is why ongoing research is also exploring non-toxic ways to influence autophagy. In certain areas of cancer research, scientists are looking into safer autophagy-inhibiting compounds that could potentially be used alongside or instead of stronger drugs, depending on the situation. Some of this research is still in early stages, but the general idea is that if someone is dealing with cancer, there may one day be gentler, more natural options that help regulate autophagy without the harsher side effects associated with conventional medications. In that context, I'll also reference a research paper I personally reviewed in detail, and I'll include it below for further reading. Along with that, I'll list a few natural, mostly plant-based substances that are being studied for their potential to influence autophagy pathways. That said, it's important to understand something very clearly. When these natural compounds are mentioned, they are not something you need to worry about suppressing autophagy in everyday life if you are healthy. In fact, many of them are generally beneficial for healthy cells and overall health. Their effects are context-dependent, meaning they behave differently depending on whether the body is in a normal state or dealing with disease. This is where autophagy becomes a double-edged sword. In a healthy body, it plays a protective and restorative role. It helps prevent many problems before they even begin. But in an unhealthy state, especially in conditions like cancer, its behavior can become more complex, sometimes even supporting disease progression instead of preventing it. Because of this, many people only start thinking about autophagy and metabolic health after they already become sick, which is unfortunately much later than ideal. For this reason, understanding how to naturally influence autophagy can be a powerful motivation to take better care of your health early on, rather than waiting for disease to develop. In a healthy system, increasing autophagy at the right times can support long-term cellular repair, resilience, and overall metabolic balance. Now, when it comes to the most powerful and well-known way to activate autophagy, fasting stands out at the top. Fasting essentially reduces incoming energy and forces the body to rely more on its internal resources. As a result, it begins recycling damaged proteins and cellular components more actively. To understand how this works, it helps to think of metabolism like a set of adjustable dials rather than an on-off switch. Just like with exercise, where your body shifts between different fuel sources, autophagy also rises and falls depending on energy availability. During physical activity, especially something intense like running uphill, your body initially relies on glucose. As the activity continues and intensity changes, it gradually shifts toward burning more fat. In reality, both fuel systems are always working together, just at different levels. Autophagy behaves in a similar way. It's not something that suddenly starts or stops completely. Instead, it gradually increases or decreases depending on conditions in the body. When you begin fasting, especially around the 12 to 18-hour range, autophagy starts to become more noticeable. As fasting continues longer, particularly into the 24 to 48-hour range, and even beyond 48 to 72 hours in some cases, the process tends to become more active as the body shifts deeper into a low-energy, resource recycling state. However, the exact timing is not the same for everyone. It depends heavily on what you eat on a regular basis. For example, if someone consumes a high amount of sugar or carbohydrates before fasting, their body will first need to use up that readily available fuel. It will also need to deplete glycogen stores in the liver before it can fully shift into deeper autophagy. This can delay the process. Because of this, one simple and effective strategy is to reduce sugar and refined carbohydrate intake beforehand. When the body isn't constantly loaded with quick-burning fuel, it can transition into fasting states more quickly and efficiently, allowing autophagy-related processes to activate sooner. Protein intake also plays a role here, since protein provides direct building blocks for the body. When enough protein is available, the need to recycle internal damaged proteins is reduced, which can also influence how strongly autophagy is triggered during fasting periods. From an autophagy perspective, you generally wouldn't want to follow an extremely high protein diet. A more moderate protein intake tends to make more sense because the goal is to allow the body to fully digest and utilize what you eat without constantly keeping it in a fed state. When you eat a meal, it typically takes several hours for all the calories and nutrients to be processed and absorbed. And during that time, your body is primarily focused on digestion and fuel use rather than internal recycling. Among the three macronutrients, fat has the least impact on suppressing autophagy. Sugar and carbohydrates have the strongest effect because they provide quick, readily available energy that signals the body there's no need to break down internal components for fuel. Fat, on the other hand, is more neutral in comparison, but even then, frequent snacking on any calorie source throughout the day can keep autophagy relatively low. To really shift the body into a stronger autophagy state, the key is to avoid continuous calorie intake altogether. Small amounts of vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes like sea salt don't usually interfere, but calories do. Another concept often discussed is dry fasting versus water fasting. A water fast means consuming only water while avoiding all food. A dry fast goes a step further by avoiding both food and water for a certain period. Some believe that dry fasting may intensify the effects of fasting because it adds an additional level of stress to the body, potentially accelerating internal cleanup processes. However, extended dry fasting is quite extreme and is not something most people should attempt casually, as it can be physically demanding and risky if not done carefully. That said, some people try a milder version of this idea by adjusting when they drink water. For example, having fluids earlier in the day and then avoiding water intake during the overnight fasting window. This extends the period where the body is both fasting and not taking in fluids, which some believe may slightly enhance the fasting effect. In practice, someone might finish their last meal with water, avoid drinking right before bed, and then continue fasting through the night until late morning or early afternoon before rehydrating again. Even if total daily water intake remains the same, simply shifting the timing may extend the fasting window in a meaningful way. Another important point is that simply reducing calorie intake can also mimic some aspects of fasting. You don't always need a complete fast to influence autophagy-related processes. Occasionally, eating very low-calorie meals, especially ones low in carbohydrates and protein, such as a large salad with a small amount of protein, can help the body move into a lower energy state more quickly. This can make it easier to transition into deeper fasting periods later on. Intermittent fasting itself is another key strategy. Consistently extending the fasting window to around 18 hours is often considered a baseline approach, with 20 hours or more potentially enhancing the effect even further. When this is combined with physical activity, the impact can become even stronger. Exercise plays a major role because it also depletes the body's energy reserves and increases metabolic demand. Lower intensity, longer duration aerobic exercise tends to stimulate autophagy more than short bursts of high-intensity training. However, both types of exercise have their own benefits, especially when it comes to overall health. Endurance training may increase autophagy more consistently, while resistance training is crucial for maintaining and building muscle mass. Ideally, a combination of both provides a balanced approach. When exercise is done during a fasting state, the effects can compound, since the body is already in a low-fuel condition and is more likely to rely on internal recycling systems for energy. It's also worth noting that when your body burns fat, it produces water as a byproduct. This means that even during fasting, the body is not completely deprived of water internally, as fat metabolism can contribute to hydration at a cellular level. Diet composition also plays a major role. Reducing carbohydrate intake helps the body transition into fasting and autophagy states more efficiently because it prevents frequent spikes in blood sugar and insulin. Similarly, protein intake should not be excessively high. A moderate protein intake is generally preferred, since too much protein can signal the body that there is no need to recycle internal proteins for resources. In addition, certain plant compounds known as phytonutrients may create mild stress signals in the body that can influence autophagy pathways. These include compounds found in coffee, green tea, berberine, adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, certain medicinal mushrooms, and ginger. These substances are often discussed in research for their potential to gently stimulate cellular stress responses, which may in turn influence autophagy activity. Before shifting focus, it's important to address the other side of the discussion, especially in the context of cancer. Some research is exploring natural compounds that may help inhibit autophagy in specific situations, particularly in cancer treatment strategies. The idea here is that while autophagy can be protective in healthy cells, cancer cells may sometimes use this recycling system to survive and grow. Because of this, researchers are investigating substances that could potentially limit autophagy activity in cancer cells. Some of the compounds being studied include certain phytochemicals and plant-based substances such as apigenin, cumin-related compounds, black cumin seed extracts, thunder god vine, and retinol, which is the active form of vitamin A. Even some unconventional sources, like specific types of natural sponges, have been mentioned in research contexts for their biochemical properties. A significant portion of this research is still ongoing, with a large percentage of natural compounds being evaluated or modified by pharmaceutical research for potential therapeutic use. The goal in many cases is to isolate beneficial properties and develop treatments that are both effective and have fewer side effects. At the same time, there is ongoing criticism of how some of this research is commercialized or patented, especially when naturally occurring compounds are turned into pharmaceutical products. Despite that, the hope remains that future treatments can strike a better balance between effectiveness and safety, particularly for complex conditions like cancer.